President Trump is following through on his promise to go after states and cities that have sanctuary laws in place that are going to interfere with federal immigration enforcement. The lawsuit that Trump recently filed, or the Trump administration filed, claims that they are in violation of the Supremacy Clause in the United States Constitution, which establishes that federal law takes precedent over all state and local laws. But before we get into this, if you're new here, drop down below, hit that notification button so you never miss another video from us. So, President Trump has promised mass deportations during his administration, and now we're only a little over 2 weeks in at this point, and I think it's safe to say that it's a little slower than one would initially have anticipated. You know, I think they're only averaging about 700 or 800 arrests per day, and I know they had a target of 12 to 1,500 arrests per day, but ultimately this is way more than what we saw under the Biden administration, and at least there is an effort, there is a push to push us in that direction. We're moving in the right direction. We're not moving towards the radical far left, open borders, no borders, crazy radicals that have controlled our country for the last 4 years. Now, so far, ICE has been very, very busy, but Trump has also promised to target state and local leaders who obstruct and harbor criminal illegal aliens. And Trump's border czar, Tom Homan, directly called these people up by name. He spent the last... It's like, since Trump got inaugurated, he's called many people up by name, but even in the lame duck period between when Trump was elected and when he was inaugurated, he was calling people out by name. Colorado, you know, there was a, Denver's mayor called him out by name. Minneapolis mayor, call him out by name. New York governor, call her out by name. And that's exactly what he did. And he said, we're going to go after you, and we're going to prosecute you for violating federal law. And now, here we have our first case against these sanctuary cities. So Trump's plans are to go directly after these sanctuary cities, because one of the big issues that the sanctuary laws, the hiccup you have here is that these local and state law enforcement officials cannot work in correlation with federal immigration officers. They cannot work hand in hand together. They cannot assist except for extreme cases where there are violent, you have to meet these high standards of violent criminals. Then the state and local law enforcement can work with federal immigration custody enforcement. But just to find illegal immigrants, and some of them, you know, they talk about, we're going to help with the violent criminals. Well, why is it that you haven't been detaining the violent criminals? Why is it that all these sanctuary cities, they say, well, it's not going to affect the violent criminals. It's only the people here who are here illegally who haven't done anything else wrong. Well, then how come thousands and thousands and thousands of violent criminals have been detained and then released back into the streets? Absolutely ridiculous. It is just ridiculous what these people are doing. But Trump has filed a lawsuit against the state of Illinois, the city of Chicago, and Cook County, and many different municipalities that have acted their own sanctuary city policies. Now, the suit, if ruled favorably for President Trump and the Trump administration, would block the sanctuary law in Illinois. And it specifically is targeting a law that is the Trust Act, which prevents state and local law enforcement from assisting federal immigration enforcement officers. Now, like we talked about, the state law supposedly, emphasis on supposedly, doesn't stop state and local agencies from assisting with violent criminals, but we have many, many, many cases that show that violent criminals have been in the custody of local or state law enforcement and then are released back out onto the streets. So the law says one thing. What actually is happening in reality is a much different reality. Now, Democrats are crying foul here. They're, what else do we expect at this point? They're claiming that if these laws are overturned, undocumented people won't come forward if they witness a crime. Like, give me a break. Let's just realize, let's just take a moment of silence, I should say. A moment of silence. There you go. A moment of silence for the complete insanity of these claims here. The complete insanity, nonsense, like the brain rot that someone has to go through in order to get to this point. So we're not going, let me get this straight. We are not going to enforce our federal immigration laws because maybe someone, somewhere, who might be an illegal immigrant might have seen something that might help convict someone who committed a crime. It's like there's a lot of maybes that have to, a lot of nuances of a situation that have to fall into place. Like, give me a break. The idea that an undocumented person is going to refuse to report a crime assumes that every undocumented person who has an encounter with the police automatically gets deported, which we already talked about earlier, which is not true. Even if they're a violent criminal illegal, it's not true. Let alone they're just here illegally. It's not true. Without these sanctuary laws, it would just allow federal authorities to detain these individuals. It doesn't even mean they would automatically get deported. They can go through due process. But if it turns out that this person has gone through due process and they have deportation orders and they have refused to leave, that's an issue. We need to get them out. They may have not committed another crime, but they've had their due process and they need to leave. But if you have an undocumented person who has not gone through the due process and is going to ask to seek asylum, we have due process in our country. They have rights to go through this due process. It's just ridiculous to assume that every undocumented person who has an encounter with the police automatically gets deported. We already know it's not true. The violent criminals don't even get deported, let alone the people who have committed no other crime besides being here illegally. Now, we know that in these sanctuary cities, state and local law officials cannot cooperate with ICE. There have been multiple cases of violent criminals violent criminals released in these sanctuary cities. Now, here's the thing. I'd just like to recognize that the U.S. has a program called U-Visa, which provides legal protection to undocumented people who are victims of a crime or can assist in a criminal investigation. They can receive protection if they cooperate. I totally understand the concerns that Democrats have raised. I think they're ridiculous, but I understand where they're coming from. But it does not justify shielding all undocumented individuals from federal law enforcement officials. Public safety is best served by allowing local law enforcement officers to work with ICE when necessary. That's the reality of the world that we live in here. If someone, these Democrats want to claim, oh, they're never going to come forward on a crime. There are visas that people can apply for, even if they can't get asylum here when they try to claim asylum or go through due process and they're ordered to deport. They have a U visa, which could allow them to stay here for, I believe it's up to 4 years that they can stay in the United States if they are a victim or can assist in a criminal investigation. Now, there are plenty of other cities outside of Chicago that the Trump administration must go after. Minnesota, and I guess these are states. There are some cities too, but states like Minnesota, California, Colorado, New Jersey, New York. Now, speaking of Colorado, there was an ICE raid yesterday in some apartment buildings in Aurora, Colorado, where there have been known I can't remember what type of, but gang members, criminally illegal gang members that were in the United States. And someone in the federal, I guess they don't really know where, but assuming it's in the federal government, leaked the plans that ICE was going to be doing a couple deportation raids. And someone leaked it. Someone leaked it before the fact. So that's something that hopefully we'll be able to get a video on here soon and get you some more information on. But other states like New Jersey, New York, Vermont, Washington, Massachusetts, and now Massachusetts, they're kind of weird because I don't think they have a state law, but most of the cities and municipalities have adopted sanctuary laws. So, and also Oregon. And, there could be some good results that come out of this. If successful, the Trump administration will have more resources to target and detain violent criminals that are in our country and people who have already gone through due process and have deportation orders. Following through on his deportation plan is exactly what Trump is doing. Trump is following through on his plans, and he's going to make America safe again. So let me know what your thoughts are down in the comments. Do you approve of what Trump's doing? You feel like it's a good thing that he's going to go after these states and cities? And if you like this video, drop a like down below. Share this with anybody. Until next time, my friends.